Hi, I'm Jessie. I'll briefly audio describe myself. I'm a white woman in my late 20s. I have short brown hair and brown eyes. I'm wearing a grey sweatshirt and sitting in my powered wheelchair. I'm a performer and writer and recently completed my PhD researching the connection between representation and recruitment practices in disability casting in UK theatre and television. My contribution is a combined personal and professional perspective on the impact of representation at a young age. It situates key points raised by my interview participants about theatre and television, alongside my own experiences as a reader of children's literature and the ways they influenced my career choices. Consequently, I'd position it as a tale of two PhDs, the one I might have written and the one I ultimately did write. From my early teens, I was determined to go to university, partly as a response to a dismissive comment made by a teacher, and partly because an academic career, being largely intellectual, seemed a sensible way around the social barriers presented by life as a wheelchair user. I mention that assumption here because it mirrors my engagement with literature as a young reader. I enjoyed books because they allowed me to interact with the world in ways that felt impossible in real life. And that meant my early dreams of a PhD were something along the lines of the impact of fiction on the development of the imagination in children with cerebral palsy. But I had too many feelings involved. My belief in books as a more accessible world was a cover for my disappointment that most of them weren't particularly positive about disability, and also for the bittersweet relief in finding a rare exception to that rule. For instance, Jessie Parsons in Michael Morpurgo's The Ghost of Grania O'Malley, or Natasha in Jacqueline Wilson's The Worry website, and much more recently, Gemma Shaw in Penny Jolson's I Have No Secret, published only in 2017. Meanwhile, as I grew up, I learnt about the disability arts community, and from there got into acting, which is much more practically based. That was made possible due to finding a history of people like me through companies like Grey Eye Theatre and Canduco Dance Company. Which brings me to my actual PhD. My participants raised similar early struggles, mentioning the impact of the examples and stories they encountered and a lack of role models. This relates to the call for own voices stories in children's and young adult literature, but it also links to something many of my participants referred to as the burden of representation, the sense that people from marginalised groups are expected to tell stories directly about their backgrounds and experiences. What we do at Inclusive Minds balances both these aspects. We promote the possibility of a cultural shift through changes to publishing practices and the availability of opportunities for aspiring writers and illustrators, while simultaneously connecting current projects to young people with lived experiences of the stories, identities, and cultures being represented. This collaborative concept works towards a world where every child will get fewer moments of disappointment at being left out and more moments of relief.
Hi, my name's Heather, and I'm one of the directors at Inclusive Minds. When I think back to my own personal experiences in terms of embracing and really wanting to express my identity, language was the key factor in catalysing that transition. I'd always been acutely aware of the power that language had to contribute to good or bad. I'd been at the receiving end of slurs and remarks, and I'd heard various slurs and remarks for various groups bandied around the classroom. I remembered this creeping shame I felt and the telling, burning feeling spreading across my face. And when I was younger, I tried as hard as I could to hide my disabilities because I remembered how people's words made me feel. It wasn't until I grew older and my curiosity got the better of me that I decided to look into these words and this vocabulary. I realised words like these had been used for decades to oppress all sorts of different people, to undermine their value and validity. I was desperate to find words that connected with my own experience and really encapsulated how I felt about myself. Any of our wonderful inclusion ambassadors, I'm sure, will tell you of a time where someone has made a comment or a remark, and it might just been an offhand comment that someone hasn't necessarily really thought about, but it's something you carry with you. Language has an immense power to paint and illustrate characters in books, and it's imperative that this is done to capture people's real experiences. The time is now to implement this change. Children deserve to see the real world in the pages of their books, and they deserve to see themselves amongst those pages. In terms of where Inclusive Minds can help you, we have a wonderful collective of inclusion ambassadors who really are the focus of everything we do. They have a wide range of lived experience and make sure that any ideas, when they're conceptualised, have had the opportunity to hear from someone with the experience themselves. I'm heartened by the inclusion of incidental difference by people such as Steve Anthony and his book Amazing, and Rose Robbins and her book Me and My Sister. Differences are just part of everyday life, and these should be embraced and celebrated and reflected amongst the pages of our books. Children grow and they take their perceptions with them, and these perceptions are usually shaped by the languages that they've been exposed to. These perceptions will then go on into their wider communities, their schools, their workplaces, and we must do everything within our power to ensure that these perceptions are authentic and that we give our children the ways and means with which to express themselves fully. Everyone's identity deserves to be embraced and celebrated. There's incredible power held in language, and each child deserves the chance and the opportunity to truly embrace their own identities without fear or judgment.
Hi there, I'm Az. I'm a children's author and I write contemporary fiction and non-fiction as A.M. Dasu. My middle grade novel, Boy Everywhere, was inspired by a news interview that showed refugees in muddy camps wearing Nike trainers, holding smartphones and talking about what they'd left behind. Looking around my comfortable living room, I realised that it could easily have been me. I realised that if it weren't for the war, most Syrians would never have left. It became clear that their lives were similar to ours in the West, and a civil war could easily bring the same fate upon any of us. I had been supporting refugees by setting up fundraising campaigns to provide food and aid for many years, but I knew this wasn't enough. I wanted to do something long-lasting by sharing their incredible achievements, culture and backgrounds. I wanted to write a book that was different to those already published about the crisis. I wanted to show the colour in contrast to the grey rubble and dust we see on TV. While I was born in the UK, my family story is also one of cross-cultural relocation and immigration, so this was already a topic close to my heart, but I am not a refugee. As writers, the last thing we want is to write about certain aspects of a culture or community in a way that disrespects or misrepresents them. We should want our fiction to be responsible and accurate, and we should ensure we do this by giving a voice and agency to marginalised communities. To write fiction from outside of our own lived experience requires a lot of research, consultation and awareness, because you don't want to represent a community in a shallow, inaccurate or insensitive way. So how can you do this? First, ask yourself, why are you writing this story? What is your intention? Is it to have a token diverse cast of characters, or is it to genuinely represent them and their experiences? Here are my practical tips on how to authentically represent marginalised communities. Number 1, do your homework. Lots of research. Firstly, be responsible and inform yourself. Find sources that aren't biased to get information about the community you're trying to portray. Secondly, stay away from stereotypes and bring in the conversation of the community you're writing about. It is never okay to cherry pick cultural elements. You need to understand them, know what affects the people you're writing about, what feels unfair to them. Read lots of articles and books and watch videos around your subject and become aware of the issues raised by minority communities. Number 2, talk to the community you're writing about. If you genuinely want to write an authentic and inclusive book, this is imperative. Do you know anyone from that community? Read books about and by the people from that culture. Get feedback from the community you're writing about. There are so many ways you can go about doing this. Number 3, Expand your network and get your book read or checked. 100 writers could read your book and every single one might miss tiny nuances only a person from that community would be aware of. For example, something as small as a character removing their shoes in a hallway before entering a house might be an insignificant detail to a lot of readers. However, it may be very significant to a minority community, and if missed, can pull a reader out and make them question your work. These things will only be picked up by readers from that community or with that lived experience, and that's where Inclusive Minds can help connect you.